crazy awesome. Oh, she's amazing. She's crazy awesome.
Hello everyone, welcome back to Coffee Talk with Brandy. Today I have my first guest, Corey, and I met Corey this last Friday at a 90 by 30 conference. It was the 7th annual, and here in Lane County, the 90 by 30 initiative is here to reduce child abuse by 90% by the year 2030. And Corey was one of our keynote speakers, and he is very captivating, and I really loved his energy. So I invited him here, and he graciously accepted the invitation to come talk on Coffee Talk with Brandy. So welcome, Corey.
Well, thanks for having me, Brandy. It's been an honor to be invited and also to have felt the energy here in Oregon. It's been exciting. I'm thrilled about what's happening. The 90 by 30, I feel, is definitely attainable. It's what I like to consider a wildly important goal. The way I envision that goal being accomplished is through community organizing, building healthy relationships with constituents. That includes families, caregivers, youth, community members. It seems the mantra of parents supporting parents is a good way to think about how we prevent neglect, because it is indeed preventable. And most of our energies across the country have been spent on reactive interventions. And why must we wait for something to happen before families get the support that they need? So that's really my why behind the work. And when I was invited to come to Oregon for the 90 by 30, I read up a little bit. I knew some of the guests and participants that would be there, and I felt deeply impacted by their vision. What I've learned is that the 90 by 30 initiative, they're solely focused on one thing and one thing only, and that's building healthier communities, building stronger relationships with those that they serve. And I think many organizations can take note of what 90 by 30 are doing, because they're not out there trying to work in various spheres of human services. They're really taking the old school approach that it takes community to build healthier families. And when we look at the socioecology model, we know that kids are not in isolation, that kids reside within the context of a parent in the greater context of community, and that community within the context of a greater society. And with that, it seems to me that 90 by 30 has really taken a deep look internally to see what their organization needs to possess in order to build these healthy relationships. And that means that we often go into families thinking that they're broken. I'm seeing, my time here, I realize that 90 by 30 staff, leadership, volunteers, everyone wants to change that mindset. That families are strong, that families have the knowledge, and how do we live the values that we speak if we are to allow families to determine what level of success means for them. And I feel that once we nurture staff and create workforce well-being, that includes standards of practice with families, understanding biases, understanding the role that racism plays in our systems and our impacts, in our outcomes, I should say. I think that we're well on our way to allowing families to really help lead the work, right? It's my belief as well that we as systems thinkers, we're not going to be the ones to change the system. I think that unnatural partnerships with families, they're the ones that's going to change the system.
Yeah, I really appreciate that. And one of the things you said yesterday that really resonated with me was the fact that you were saying, we're not here to fix people, but we're here because we care. And when people know we care, that creates connection. And I'm really as you get to know me and watch, Coffee Talk with Brandy,
Mm-hmm.
connection is my biggest key factor in creating that change. And although I work in the system, I'm not the system, as I come on as a peer.
Mm-hmm.
So as peers, we come right beside each other.
Right.
I'm not there to fix anybody. I'm here to walk alongside of them and to help mine that gold. Every single one of us has gold, and I really truly believe that. And that makes me passionate about the work. That makes me passionate about 90 by 30. It makes me passionate about helping others, because for me personally, when I was very first seen and heard,
Mm-hmm.
it was so transforming in my own life because I hadn't been seen and heard before. And that is what, as we talk about, Brene Brown talks about connection as,
Mm-hmm.
as the feeling of being seen and heard. And I feel like so many of us in our culture have not been seen and heard. And when you come in as a peer and you have that lens of, I know what it's like to not be seen and heard, and I'm going to hold that space for you, that's the beauty of being able to move forward. That's where I saw my most growth, is when somebody held some space for me
Yeah.
and reflected back to me the beautiful things they saw in me because I couldn't see them in myself. So I really resonate with that. And the 90 by 30 as well. So can you tell me what in your life created that passion for you to do the work that you're doing now?
Well, there were several things. When I started work in systems improvement, leadership development, I realized that the system has a way, and this is human services at large, right? The system has a way of indoctrinating us and believing that there's a standard for families, that families of all cultures, all backgrounds, all races should fit in these boxes.
Yes.
So that allows us to perpetuate the maverick mentality. Pull yourself up by your bootstraps. Do it alone. With that kind of thinking, it sets families up for greater failure. And what I mean by that is we compare ourselves to other people as parents. And when we're not achieving at the rate or the level that some systems would believe we should, we isolate. Believe me that as a father, I know my opportunities for growth. And I live in sort of this fear when I have something awry in the relationship with my son. Therefore, I'm reluctant to reach out for help, because when I reach out for help to the system, they judge me and make me feel that I have done something wrong. And many families that I've worked with, they feel that they have to be in a deeper hole before they can get help. So with initiatives that are promoting stronger families, keeping kids together, I see that we are changing our shifts in thinking from the basic premise that children and families need to be rescued and saved, to children and families of all backgrounds need a little support sometime. And we as systems, we pedestal ourselves from a systems perspective that we are better equipped, better knowledgeable, better parents than the parents that we serve. Through our conversations over the past couple of days, we see that even systems providers, we all have challenges with raising kids, right? It's a hard job. So we know that it takes a lot more than love to raise kids. It takes community. It takes families to feel safe enough to reach out for support that they need. And many times, we, from the system perspective, we provide antidotes. We provide prescriptions. We provide services, programs, education, all well and good. But the largest percentage of our families that are in a little bit of quote unquote crises right now need Maslow. Concrete supports are critically important. And when families are living in poverty, we as the system, we equate poverty, we have equated poverty to neglect. There's correlation, but it's not causation. So in order for us to recognize the value in families, I think you nailed it. We must continue to mine for gold. And what I mean is, that sets us up to say, as we go into families, all families are messy. We have to tolerate a little bit of risk, right? We're not saviors, we're supporters. And in order to create a safe environment for individuals to reach out for greater help when they need it, we must shift aside 2 pounds of dirt in order to find 2 ounces of gold. And it is also a core belief of mine that if we do not find that gold, we're not looking hard enough, because all of us have it.
Yeah. Well, and I agree. And one thing I want to pull out is the expectations of our society and what we place upon people. There's these expectations, and then there's this judgment if somebody doesn't meet that expectation. But if we start to shift our thinking from the expectation, they're not meeting it because they just don't freaking want to, to being curious, to being, I wonder what's going on. I wonder what skill they might be lacking. That's not getting them to the expectations we perceive for them. And being questionable of, why are those the expectations? Who set those expectations? We need to push against the system, and we are the system. So I always find it funny when we have these conversations about the system, because we create the system.
Exactly.
So how do we shift that thinking in our system? And for me personally, it's pushing against hierarchy. It's creating the equality for everybody, the inclusiveness, the understanding that every single person deserves to have a seat at that table. Because without each other and without our authentic view of what we need, we cannot serve one another if we don't get our understanding out on the table. Because all of us, we have our own microculturals. We have our huge cultural views in the United States. We have all of these different views, and how do we create that so that we have the acceptance that people will come to their culture and their views with their own lived experiences?
One thing that we have gotten away from, or many of us aren't aware of, is that our formation, right? America itself was formed and cultivated in a few legacies. Those being highly paternalistic, patriarchy, colonization, theft of land, right? Universal Christianity as a belief, and civilization, right? So when you think about family legacies, so the legacies we leave our kids, the formation of America has also left legacies within us, right? And a part of that, it even goes from the legacy of slavery. So we feel that there's already a hierarchy. So it is our duty to fix, to civilize, to make people whole like us. People who don't think like us, pray like us, believe like us, parent like us are judged.
Yes.
Right?
Yep.
And that is intraculturally, intraracially, right? It's what you said. It's us perpetuating the hierarchical system.
Yes.
When we can dare ourselves to share power, we are doing more justice for kids and families than we ever could do with any new policy, with any new program, with any new parenting education course. When we begin to relinquish our hold on paternalistic values and allow individuals who are recipients of our services to utilize their experiences to infuse new ways of thinking into our practices, that is when we begin to disrupt the hierarchical system. That is when we begin to extract good, best, relational-based approaches based on what people say they need. And what people truly need at the core is to feel a sense of belonging. the challenge we have as us perpetuating the system, we can't quantify a sense of belonging. So we often don't measure the things that are important, and we objectify human beings at the core because we're all subjective beings. And when we only utilize, I would say, quantifiable measures to determine someone's success, it's injustice. And I think families truly feel that, and hence why when things get a little troubling in the home, they don't reach out.
Yeah.
Right? Because the system's not responsive to what they truly need.
Yeah.
And this is, again, what Brene Brown talks about. This is heart work, right? And heart work is hard work.
Yeah.
But we mustn't give up. Because I believe that, hope, when we lose hope, we then begin to believe that the outcome's not possible. When hope is existent, we always believe that the outcome is possible. So when you're partnering with your families, it sounds as if you believe fundamentally that whatever the outcome is, it's not your outcome, it's the outcome they want for their lives, and you see that as a possibility. That hope is transmitted to an individual, and that creates this connection. That creates the belonging, the sense of belonging. And when we feel that we can take ownership in our community because it's now mine. It's not just the systems, right?
Well, and I really love what you said about sharing power. Because coming from my perspective as a woman and knowing I don't have equal power, I've always was looking at it from a perspective of taking away their power, but I really appreciate the fact that you said shared power, because I believe that's so true. That was mind-blowing for me in this conversation right now, is that shared power. And I also, because I always ask questions in Coffee Talk with Brandy, so my question for you watching this is, if you are coming alongside of somebody and you feel the need to fix them, I ask you to pause. Pause for your own good and ask yourself, what is it within me that feels like I need to fix somebody else? Because that self-reflection piece comes down to us trying to figure out where we're hurting in our own life. It's not a bad thing to want to help fix people. It's beautiful that we want to help. And when we're shifting our mindset to create the ability to help people, it's coming alongside of them. And another thing that really struck me is the fact of, finding information. I have to prove that my job is actually important. So I have to give them data. And I go back to that same thing. How do you prove that my connection is what's helping them to move forward? I mean, I see it. I know what connection did for me. I know it empowered me to leave relationships that were unhealthy. It empowered me to find my own self. So the very data they're asking us to collect, yes, scientific, all of that stuff, and the very basis of human connection, we are wired for a connection from the day we are born. And without it, if an infant did not get that connection, if they got fed but not changed, all of that stuff, you give the basic needs that we think about. We think basic needs are food, shelter, water. We forget that the basic necessity of connection is what we have to have. And if we don't get it, we will die. Emotionally, mentally, and physically. That connection piece is so important. So just to kind of wrap it up, what for you, we kind of talked about it already, but why is connection so important to you?
I'll say that I have learned to recognize my interdependence on others. I do nothing alone. Even in the moments when I feel that I have accomplished something by myself, in reflection, I realize that there's always been someone there that believed in me, someone there to guide me, someone there to welcome me into their world where they can then deposit things in me. I rarely feel connected to something or someone when I'm told what I'm not, right?
Yeah.
When I am seen for who I am, even in spite of racial differences, cultural differences, gender differences, when people engage and embrace me for my qualities as an individual, flaws included, I feel connection. So it is deeply important for me to give away freely what was given to me to others, because I know that if we were able to quantify my feeling and my sense of connection to communities, to people, to you, it would be twofold. We would attempt to extract that, harness it, and create programs based on connection.
Yeah.
Right? It is that powerful. So at the core, people need people, and I'll just end here. We speak a lot about trauma, but one thing we know is if trauma happens in relationship, it's healed through relationship. So that's why connection is important for me. It's healing.
Yeah. I agree. And I feel like on that note as well, being courageous in relationships is not always easy, because if we've been hurt in relationships, putting ourselves out there, and as you were saying, that putting ourselves out there in a relationship can help heal us. So, but it's coming back to that being seen, being heard, being with people who accept you for everything that you are, despite everything that we are not, as flaws and all of that stuff. It's seeing us for the very soul that we are. And that is what helps us to move forward. So thank you
Definitely.
for being here, Corey.
Thank you.
I'm super excited.
Thrilled. Yeah.
Yay.
Thank you for doing this. Your platform is awesome. So I'm looking forward to seeing you grow and continue to change the system.
Thank you. And you as well. Maybe we'll work together more and we can change the system together.
Definitely. Thank you.
It's a plan. Thank you. Bye, guys.